the way that I got into Bitcoin was interesting because I was a good programmer for the video game stuff. Someone in my early 20s or mid 20s actually recommended me to a currency trading firm that needed somebody. They needed their quant. I don't know. They needed a guy to come in and write algorithms to trade on their systems. And so they had like a Bloomberg terminal that had all this data coming in, which were super. I couldn't believe that you paid like 10 grand to get all this data. Like, to me, this was so foreign. I didn't know anything about money, didn't know anything about finance. And so they bring me in and they're like, here's the information.
My favorite.
Here's the information. We want to make trades and make money based on this information we're getting, and just buying and selling US dollars against Great Britain pound, euros. And so I worked with them for a while, and necessarily I had to learn like what money was. I was interfacing with like APIs for banks and brokers and stuff like that, and the Bloomberg terminal and everything, and writing algorithms and, having it trade automatically. And so I figured out a way that, you know what the non-farm payroll is? It's like a report that comes out.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, it tells you like how many jobs were created that are non-farm, like technology and all this other stuff. And so I figured out that if the non-farm payroll expects like, let's say 100,000 jobs to be created, but then that's the expectation. But then when it actually comes out, let's say they lost 100,000 jobs, then the US dollar will usually drop against like euros or Great Britain pound or whatever. And so I found a pattern, and I wrote a program that would basically go in and out and just take a couple pips and make a profit. And we were doing that, and it was working, and they were making money, and they were like really happy. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my program started receiving a message when we would do the trades, and it was just like trade canceled or trade closed or something like that. I was like, that's weird. But then it happened enough times that I started calling the broker. The broker started telling me it's not them, it's coming from the bank that they deal with. And so they gave me a number to the bank. I started calling people at the bank, and they start kind of like stepping me through. And eventually some executive at this bank that was blocking the trade basically said, he felt bad. He was like, look, kid, the bank reserves the right to cancel any trade they feel they're going to be on the losing end of.
Wow.
And at that moment, I just realized how rigged just everything is. And then by then I had learned so much, like, some systems are like running on COBOL and stuff. And like, there's some old mainframe probably holding like bank records and everything that's, at any moment can just like fry. So I started to see the fragility in the entire system. And then checks could, people commit fraud, and, checks could, be checked by an employee and they type in the wrong numbers. Like, everything just felt so fragile and low tech to me. Do you know what I mean?
And at this point, you're not privy to Bitcoin yet.
No,
right?
no. But I just started to see like the holes in the financial system, that it just felt something that I felt was so solid in my mind before just became like so, I don't know, so wishy-washy.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And
you start to lose trust and confidence.
Yeah,
and
I just lost total trust, but there's nothing else, right?
Yep.
This is all there is. And then in 2008, there was a crash that happened. And as soon as the crash happened, I understood like I got it all, right? Like what was happening and why it was happening. And so I started looking for alternatives. I even thought about making a website for doing like barter. So instead of using money, you could just barter items, right? And then maybe it could have its own internal currency.
Kind of like eBay without the dollar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But then I started realizing that you couldn't really do something like that. Like, there's so much regulations and everything that it's like, that's why people don't do it. And so I started looking online for information, and I stumbled across the Bitcoin Talk forum.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start reading about Bitcoin. This was like I thought at first it was like 2012, but I've since like gone back and it was like 2011. So like quite early. And I start reading about it, and I even downloaded the mining software. And so I ran it for a while, but I thought it was too complicated. I didn't feel like anybody was going to use this. So I kind of just put it away. Like, I didn't even care. Like if I mined anything, I didn't even, I didn't care for it. Like I didn't save anything. But then I couldn't get it out of my head. Like I would be at parties and stuff. Like I remember there was this one party, 2012, where it was like Mayan themed end of the world sort of thing. It was at a buddy's place.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I dressed up as like a Mayan, native, guy. And then looking back, it's ironic because all I was doing at the party was talking to people about, hey, have you heard about this Bitcoin thing? Like, like now I can see the interesting ness of being dressed as, the Mayan native priest dude talking about like Bitcoin, you know what I mean, at the end of the world.
Yeah.
But I didn't even get it at the time. Like I was just like, have you heard about this thing called Bitcoin? Yeah, it's like this, and there's mining. I don't know. It's not gonna work, I don't think. But I couldn't stop talking about it, even though I was trying to rationalize, I think, why anybody would use it. And even though I was thinking nobody's gonna use it, I couldn't stop talking about it. Do you know what I mean? It was one of those weird things. And then in 2013, they unveiled the first Bitcoin ATM in Vancouver. Like, I forget who was behind it, but I think Roger Ver was one of the owners eventually.
Might have been like a Lamasu Bitcoin ATM.
No. It was like Bitcoiniacs or something. I forget.
Okay.
But anyways, they had the first ATM. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, we have to go down there. So we went down there. My wife was pregnant at the time. And we were just like feeding money into this machine. And by then the bills, like the Canadian bills, were actually plastic, like polymer. They had changed them from paper to plastic. And so we're watching these bills go into the machine, and then Bitcoin's being sent, on chain to my wallet. And I just remember having this profound sense of like really seeing the Canadian dollars as just plastic, like pieces of plastic. Do you know what I mean?